This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.
Hey, welcome back. Jonathan Clark. We're in the studio with Sean Dowdell. He is the drummer and co-founder of a band called Grey Daze, which may sound familiar to you. It was, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, was it technically the first band that Chester Bennington was in?
So technically our first band was just prior to that together, but that only lasted a year. Our first band together that we had a full record release on, yes, Grey Daze.
Oh, okay. This is in high school, right? In Phoenix, Arizona?
It's where it started. He was a sophomore in high school, and then we played all the way up until he was 23, 24 on these songs.
And the reason you're here is this is really cool. There's a new Grey Daze album coming out with Chester on the lead vocals on these tracks. Now, you got to tell me when and where he recorded these vocal tracks and how long ago that was.
So the vocal tracks, there's 11 songs on the new album, and most of the songs were recorded in 1997, so he would have been 21 when we recorded most of them. There's a few of them on the record that were recorded in 93, so he would have been 17, 18.
It's amazing. Wow. And so you've taken these tracks and you've sort of done the opposite of what most people do. You have existing tracks, then you're adding music to it, right? Which is bizarre, probably, right? I mean,
it was very difficult to wrap our head around when we first started the process, right? So we started this while Chester was still alive, but we kind of took a left turn and had to start over once he passed, and decided to rewrite all of the music in a modern format.
So there were songs that sort of existed with those vocal tracks, or did you have to create chords around the melodies that he was singing?
No, the songs were actually already pre-existing, and we had these recordings that were completely done, completely mixed back from 94 and 98,
but never released.
They were released locally, but then when the band broke up and Linkin Park took off, Warner Brothers really kind of stepped on what Grey Daze was. We were selling lots of records locally. We had several record deals, but they convinced Chester to pull everything back from the marketplace. So really, most of his fans haven't heard this stuff. En masse. And at the time, I was really upset because we had a very huge following and we were doing quite well. But they felt it was a competitive product at the time to what he was doing with the new Linkin Park stuff, which I understand, and didn't want it to mess with our friendship. So we just kind of left it there. And then now that we decided to re-engage with Grey Daze when he was alive, we came up with the idea of going back and retracking all these songs. So we felt they were good songs. We started that process working with a producer and started stripping the tapes down and figuring out how we were going to approach the songs. And then Chester ended up passing away in July of that year. So it just all systems stopped, right? And I didn't really address it for another 6-8 months. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to finish these records. Chester wanted them done. I wanted them done. I just was going to do it on my own and kind of fund it ourselves and put it out just on our own, just on the internet, maybe print a couple thousand CDs and call it good. But then as we got into the process, we started realizing how good the songs really were, and they really needed a new modern kind of a feel so that they'd be a little bit more relevant and easily digestible to his fans and listeners that understand the time and place of where they have Chester in their mindset. So that's really where we approached it from.
Let's rewind a little bit. Tell me about your first meeting with Chester. I believe, what was it, 9th grade? Was it 10th grade? How old were you guys?
So he was in 10th grade. He was 15 years old. I was a freshman in college. I was 17 years old. Graduated early. So I had
good for you. Wow.
Thank you. It was not because I was a good student. I just happened to get rushed through the school system. But in any case, we were trying out singers for our band, and the guitar player at the time, his name was Chris, was friends. His little brother was friends with Chester and said, "Hey, this kid who sings with my little brother is actually really good. He sounds just like Eddie Vedder. We should have him come in." So I said, "Bring him in." And he showed up, and he was all of 90 pounds, soaking wet. He had this tight curly hair. He was wearing glasses, and my arrogant attitude, I'm looking at him going, "You don't look like the rock star I'm looking for." Like in my mind, it was so ridiculous that I had these preconceived notions of what a rock star needed to look like. But then he sang, and he blew the doors off the place. He was so good. At 15 years old, he had this raw talent that we all know. You know, he has this honed version of what we all know now. But at 15, he had this rawness that was just amazing.
Did he tell you then who were his favorite singers at the time?
Yeah, absolutely. He loved Perry Farrell. He loved Scott Weiland. He loved Eddie Vedder. He loved Lane Staley. I mean, these were all huge
and this is
idols
like
for him.
A couple years after the grunge thing exploded, right? Like,
So when we first met, it was 92. And then, you know, as the years progressed, he really got more and more into the grunge and kind of post-grunge scene at that point.
Yeah. We're with Sean Dowdell. He is the drummer and co-founder of Grey Daze. And we're talking about this new album, which I believe comes out in April of this year, right? Do I have that right?
Yes, sir.
So getting back to that story you were telling about first meeting him in high school and everything, there was actually a point where you had to sit down with Chester and his parents.
His father.
And his father.
Yeah.
And tell me about that meeting.
So after he came and tried out, we're all, you know, our jaws were on the floor, just how good this guy was. We're like, well, when can you start? And he says, well, I have to go ask my dad. Can you come and talk to my dad with me and maybe help me convince him that I can join this band? I said, sure. You know, thinking I'm this much older guy. I'm 2 years older than him.
Right.
We drive over to his house, and his dad was, his name is Lee. You know, he's a police lieutenant at the time, and he was getting ready for work. So he comes out, and here I am in my, you know, super long hair. I just look like everything you don't want your kid hanging out with, right? And he comes out in his police uniform, and he was actually really open to listening. So we sat in the living room, and I said, hey, you know, we think your son is really good singer, and he's gonna be able to do this, and we'd like him to join the band. And his dad had 100 questions, mostly revolving around school and, you know, when he's gonna be home, is it gonna, you know, mess up his grades, that type of thing. And, you know, at 15, Chester's promising his dad everything just to be able to do this, because he really,
yes, I will.
Exactly. I'll do whatever you want, Dad. I'll wake up at 5 a.m, go to school, whatever it was. He was wanting to do it. And his dad was cool enough. He said, you know, he kind of put it on my shoulders. He was like, look, if you're going to have him join this group, you know, that's fine. He can go play rock star, but he needs to still stay in school, and he still needs to do well and do his best. And I want him to still be smart. I don't want him to go off and just be some young punk. And
still the old sort of something to fall back on is always in the background, right?
Exactly.
With parents.
But I got to hand it to his dad. His dad actually let him join the band, and Lee supported him and would come to the shows. And, of course, all the kids would get scared because his dad would pull up in a cop car. And, you know, just, yeah, that's stupid.
So great.
Yeah, that young mentality where, you know, anytime you saw a police officer, you wanted to run. But no, Lee was actually very supportive of Chester. And his mom, Susan, as well. You know, as time went on, she supported him as well. And his parents were really good people.
So the band sort of goes their separate ways after a few years. Linkin Park explodes and blows up and everything. But you were still in touch with Chester. And at one point he and this involves a club that you started with him, right? Is this club in Phoenix or?
So I'll give you a little bit of a rundown. So Grey Daze last basically from early 93 to mid 1998. We put out 2 full-length records. We had 3 record deals. We had radio play. We were playing in front of 1,500 to 1,800 people regularly, playing with all the nationals from No Doubt to Bush to 7 Mary 3 at the time. We were killing it. But the band had some addiction problems, and we had some ego problems, and we kind of imploded. As we imploded, our attorney in L.A., who was handling us with Warner Brothers, as fate would have it, called Chester and said, I have this other group out in L.A. We want you to come and audition out here. So Chester did a quick demo, flew out to L.A. That band was called Zero. They changed their name to Linkin Park, and the rest is history on that front. When Grey Daze broke up, Chester and I had a big falling out. I was his big brother. He was my little brother. We were the closest of friends. But, you know, he was newly married. I was about to get married. Our egos were a little out of whack, and our goals were not aligned at the time. So our friendship kind of split, and we didn't talk to each other until 2002. So after Hybrid Theory came out, our original guitar player in Grey Daze, Bobby Benish, was diagnosed with brain cancer. Oh. And Chester called me and said, hey, you know, I heard that Bobby is sick. I'm sorry for everything that happened. I said, I'm sorry, you know, as well, Chester. And he says, look, we were the best of friends, and I miss you. we need to get our friendship back on track. And we did. From that phone call forward, we were, closest. I flew out to LA, I think, the next weekend and spent the weekend with him. And then from that point forward, we were inseparable again. In 2003, my wife and I took Chester on as a business partner in our upscale tattoo company called Club Tattoo. Now, in 1995, the original bass player, Mace, and myself had opened Club Tattoo in Tempe, Arizona. Chester was there for the whole ride. He helped me put down the vinyl flooring and helped me paint the place. And he was an active part in Club Tattoo early on, but he wasn't an owner. And I think he always kind of admired that. So when he came into some money and some success, he called me and said, hey, I'd really like to partner up with you if you ever want to expand Club Tattoo. And so we had 2 stores at the time, and we had an opportunity to buy a third, and he came on. And then from that point, once Chester joined Club Tattoo with Thor and myself, we really exploded globally. We ended up doing a global shoe deal with Etnies and bicycle playing cards, and then we ended up opening stores on the Strip in Las Vegas inside the casinos, and all of a sudden our brand was a real global brand, and Chester in part was to thank for that. He gave us some attention that we maybe wouldn't have gotten without it.
And now continue that story, because he called you and said we need to get Grey Daze back together again, or there was a reunion sort of show planned or something.
So over the last couple decades, Chester and I played with putting Grey Daze back together several times. The first time in 2003, we were going to do a benefit show, and then again in 2007. We used to do these big parties for Club Tattoo, the Club Tattoo anniversary parties, and we would draw 3,000 to 5,000 people to these events. And then Chester and I would get a bunch of rock star friends, and we'd get up on stage and we'd play. We'd have Fort Minor play one year. We'd have Alien Ant Farm, Jada Pinkett Smith, Story of the Year, Z-Trip. So we would have these really cool events. And then Chester went down the road of sobriety, and those parties weren't really conducive to that lifestyle. So we kind of held back. First of all, they're very expensive to do. They were a lot of work for my wife and I. They were a lot of fun, and they paid huge dividends, but they were a ton of work, and we were expanding our business so much, we just really didn't have time to do those parties anymore. 2016 happens. He puts out the One More Light album with Linkin Park, and we talked all the time. Not only were we business partners, not only were we bandmates, but we were very close friends. We went out to dinner. We played basketball. We hung out. We took vacations. We did all that stuff as normal friends would. So it wasn't abnormal for us to talk 1 to 2 times a week, at worst once every couple of weeks. But he called me from the road, and he said, we haven't done an anniversary party in a long time. Let's do another Club Tattoo party. I said, you're right, because we've got some really cool things going on. We just expanded. We just opened our second store in Las Vegas, and all these cool things were happening. And he said, I want to do something special. I want to put Grey Daze back together. I think it's time. And I said, that is really interesting. That sounds like a lot of fun to do. So we kind of walked through what that would look like. Mason and I hadn't talked in years. And basically, we talked about, let's put together a reunion show and see what happens. Well, as soon as Chester and I announced the reunion show in January, it kind of just went viral. A million something views on his page from it, and we started getting offers all over the world to start playing again. And one of our conversations that came in after that fact is like, we have all these recordings sitting there. I don't have time to dedicate 6 months to going in and recording a Grey Daze record right now. I still have to do Linkin Park, but I want a rock band of my own. I want to do this again. And after leaving Stone Temple Pilots, he had this sense of loss. Like he wanted to go and play with his friends again. And I think that's why Grey Daze was so appealing to him. So we talked about going back in and re-recording all of the 30 songs we had. And he said, we can just do them. They're good songs. Let's see what happens. Let's go pick the best ones and work with them. So we started working with a producer in January of 2017. She stripped down all of the tracks down to their core, and we started working on guitar parts and rewriting and restructuring the songs. And our first rehearsal was supposed to be in July, approximately 3-4 days after he passed. He went to Sedona, spent some time with his family, flew back to LA to do a quick TV commercial, and then was going to fly down to Phoenix to meet up with his wife and kids. They were driving down from Sedona, and then we're going to have dinner that Saturday night with my wife and his family. And that following day, we were supposed to start rehearsals, and unfortunately, that never got to happen.
Yeah. I can imagine you with these tracks and the producers putting this new sort of compilation or new version of these songs together. It had to be kind of emotional for you to listen to this stuff, right?
Yeah, extremely. I mean, the first 4 months, there were a lot of tears shed, not only from myself, but the other band members, Kristen and Mace. And we felt the weight of the world on our shoulders, so to speak, with this, because of course we want the music to be good, but there's so many aspects to being good, right? We had to make sure that we stayed true to the original intention of what we had with Chester. We had to stay true to the intention and keep the integrity of the actual songs in the band. We had to make sure that these songs sounded right to Chester's current fans, and then we had to make sure that these songs were relevant in today's music market. So there were a lot of things on our shoulders that we felt like we had to address before we just started writing. And we hired 5 different producers to actually work on the record. So we got a different flavor from each one, and different ones worked on different tracks so that we could attack several things at once. Because most of the band members, they have day jobs. It's not like they could just take 8 months out of their life to do this.
But they are on this. The other 3 guys, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the other 2 guys. So
other 2 guys, okay.
Mace is the bass player. Kristen Davis is the guitar player. I'm the drummer, and Chester's the singer. And then we did have some guest stars that came in. And
I saw that. Tell us.
So as we started working through these songs and rewriting these songs, the way we did it was we stripped everything away except for the vocal track. And we started with the vocal track and reworked the arrangement and made sure he sounded amazing. And then we wrote the music around those vocal tracks so that we could make sure that his vocals were the primary focus of every single song. And I think we crushed it. I think we did a great job, and I'm super proud of what we did.
Well, what's crucial is that the initial performance of his vocal track, he nailed it. I mean,
amazing,
even
right?
when he was, a teenager, right? I mean, if you didn't have that, the tracks wouldn't be as good as they are.
No, they'd be kind of useless, right? We'd be just polishing demos, and that's not what I
we're not
wanted to
talking
do.
scratch demos here. You know what I mean?
No, it sounds the whole purpose of this, and I said this in the beginning, like, we're going to do this. When we picked it back up after he passed, I said, if we're going to do this, it has to sound like he came in and recorded it last week. And I think we did that. I think we got there. It was, it took us 2.5 years to get to that point. But I think he would be ecstatic with the album.
Oh my
that
God,
we did.
yeah. Well, it's funny because you give that timeline of 2017, and we were here. He came by with the new Linkin Park album. He visited every radio station in this building, Z100, us. He was here for like an hour and a half. I mean, he was I had no idea. Nobody had any idea what was going on inside him and the demons that he was facing. He couldn't have been nicer and more generous with his time. And then 3 months later or whatever it was, it's just unbelievably sad. There is a sort of mini documentary of the stories that you are telling us right now, and it's on YouTube, and I think it's on the Grey Daze website. But there's music underneath that documentary. Is that the music, part of the music that we're going to hear on this album?
Yes. So all the music that you're seeing on the documentary is literally us in the studio working on the songs that make the record.
Yeah.
So everything you hear is a rendition in some part of what you're actually going to hear on the record.
I can't wait to hear this album. There's one song that I have heard, What's in the Eye. What more can you tell us about that song? So
What's in the Eye was the first single that we released off this record for several reasons. The first is it was one of the only songs that maintained really what it was from the original album. It sounds really close to what it was in the original album, and it's the only song on the entire album that does sound like what it sounded like when we wrote it originally. The second reason was because we felt that the chorus was so strong and that Chester's fans could relate to listening to it in that way very easily. It just seemed like they would hear it and go, yep, that's Chester, and know it right away, and they could align with that. And then as far as how the song was written, Chester and I, for a lot of people don't know this, Chester and I used to write all the lyrics together. And this was a song that I originally wrote and brought to practice on my notepad. And we have these lyric books, and I brought it in, and we started working with it. And Chester had a friend in high school who had just passed away a few days before in a car accident. And it's weird because I still have the original lyric sheet of the lyrics that I wrote. And then the next one that he wrote is my lyrics, but my chorus is a big X through it, and he rewrites the chorus. Don't go too fast, my friend, or you'll lose control. And that's just how we wrote. So it's not me bagging on myself or anything like that. I've got lyric sheets where I would cross things out. He did, and we just go back and forth. It's just how we work together. But that chorus really came from a sense of loss for him. And the song took kind of a left turn. It took a whole new meaning because of the loss of his friend. And the song became about the loss of life and losing control too young. And, it's very prophetic. A lot of the lyrics on this album have this double meaning because it's almost like when you listen to this record, you're going to hear these lyrics that he and I did so many years ago. And there's so many things that sound like an apology from beyond. And it's going to make you tear up when you listen to a lot of stuff. It's really emotionally powerful.
And then there's another song out or soon to come out called Sickness, which might be the sort of technically the first real big single or whatever. What can you tell us about that song?
So Sickness is a song that Chester actually wrote entirely on his own lyrically. I did not write any of the lyrics on that. And it's really about being malcontent. It's about not understanding yourself. Why am I here? He keeps asking this question. I need more. Can you help me? He's reaching to a higher power, trying to understand what is his purpose? What is he doing here? And if he doesn't get that answer, he doesn't want to be here. And it's once again, it's prophetic, right? But he has this huge vocal chorus that it just explodes when he comes into it. It's got this great groove as you hear through it, but then it's that traditional Chester chorus that you know and love over the years, right? It's just a giant voice that just comes and stomps on your head.
Yeah, he was good at that.
Yeah, and it's there. And it's really cool when you think about his age once again. He's 21 years old when he recorded this track, and the raw power just comes through, and it just smacks you upside the head. It's great.
Do we have a title yet or no?
We do. The title of the album is called Amends. And once again, this is kind of double meaning. And as we were searching for titles of the record, Kristen, the guitar player, he said, there's a song called Moray Sky. And the chorus of Moray Sky says, if I had a second chance, I'd make amends. And we just felt like that was such a powerful lyric in view of what happened.
Yeah.
Right. And we just felt like, it made so much sense to include that somehow. So initially we were starting with making amends, and then we whittled it down to just a simple amends, just one word. It can take on many different meanings for whoever the listener is, for the way they want to apply that to their life or their situation. And we felt like that was just a term that really fit with the entire motive of the record.
Are you excited to get this out into the world?
My main thing, I am excited, short answer, yes, but my main thing was to try to complete something that my friend and I started, and I wanted to make him proud the way we did it. I was very careful along the way on how to curate this music properly. My wife kept telling me to be patient, and I listened. But the music was really important to me on a very deep level. I don't care if 1 million people listen to it or 2 people listen to it. I'm just happy that I completed it with the band members, and we did it the way that we had set out to do, and it's something I think that Chester would be very proud of had he been alive.
Amends is the new album from Grey Daze. It comes out in April this year, 2020. Sean Dowdell is with us. Tell me more about your company. What do you tell me? Do you still have Club Tattoo, and what is it, and where is it, and where can people find out about it?
So Club Tattoo is a luxury tattoo and piercing studio that we started in 1995. My wife and I run the company. We have 7 locations. We have 4 in Arizona. We have 3 in Las Vegas on the Strip and the Venetian, at Planet Hollywood and the Link. They're very upscale. They're very technologically forward retail concepts that use touchscreen integration with our tattoo concept. It's really cool. It's an open, beautifully designed by my wife. All of the stores are just amazing. We have great artists. We have amazing body piercers. We have a great staff. We sell lots of gold, lots of diamonds. It's a really cool concept. It's very edgy. And yeah, we've been in business for 25 years, and we're still partners with Chester's widow, Talinda, in all the companies. And We're always expanding. We've done some really cool global collaborations. Like I said before, we did a shoe line with Etnies. We did bicycle playing cards. We did some hair clippers with tattoo art on with Oster, and we've done a lot of really cool things. And we're very proud of Club Tattoo, and it's really it's become a really awesome brand and just a really cool thing that we do that we're very proud of.
Very cool. Well, we'll look forward to hearing this entire new album from Grey Daze, the men's, coming out in April of this year. Sean Dowdell, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate having me on here.
This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q104.3.